Welcome to Fearless Wild Creative, a podcast for those who want to be led by confidence, guided by creativity, and grounded in nature. I'm artist and designer Meghan. I have spent decades turning creative vision into a way of life. Each episode blends metaphor, story, knowledge, and practical tools. Whether you're growing your courage, your creative voice, your work, or your connection to nature, you belong here. All right, welcome to the first ever Wild episode. So if you don't already know, each week in this podcast, we have a theme of either fearless, wild, or creative. And this is a Wild episode. And this is where we talk about how nature affects our bodies and our lives, as well as what we can learn from her infinite wisdom to help us live more balanced lives. And that is actually what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about is balance. And this is going to be an ongoing theme because it's so important. It's really one of those overarching lessons that I feel like we need so badly that nature teaches us. Nature is always striving for balance, and we can see that everywhere in the large scale with the seasons and how everything rotates between hot and cold and growing and resting and light and dark and wet and dry, to the smallest things of how a little seedling needs just enough sunlight and water and soil and nutrients to grow. It's balance. Similar to how when plants, when they get too much sun or not enough water, and they'll wilt. And we are the same way. Our bodies and our minds need balance. Unfortunately, the society that we currently live in, at least here in the USA, is not only not built for balance, but it actually rewards imbalance. When you overwork yourself, you're considered a tough, hard worker, which is highly valued. This comes, of course, from the industrial age, which is long overdue to be phased out of our society, in my opinion, but that will get me off on a long tangent, and I'm not going to do that today. But some other examples would be when you post on social 10 times a day, you're rewarded for that. You get likes and follows and dopamine hits. Or when you sleep less and think more and learn more and clean more and take care of more people and volunteer more at your kid's school. And I could go on, but you, I think, get the idea. It comes down to that more is always rewarded. So tell me if this sounds familiar. You wake up, you're already feeling guilty that you didn't get up earlier, immediately start buzzing on coffee, possibly doom scrolling through angry Facebook posts with one hand and half working, half checking your email, half taking care of your kids, and generally just half falling apart. And this is not thriving. I know, and you know that, of course, but you're stuck in the momentum of it all, in the pressure of everything that is on you. But when we do all this at a point, we're just running on fumes and overdoing stimulation and forgetting what actually keeps you rooted and rested and well. Because you're not a machine. You're a whole human being that needs cycles and rhythm and true nourishment. I am definitely guilty of this. My soon-to-be father-in-law likes to say that I have a wheel under my butt. My soon-to-be husband gets exhausted just watching me, and part of it is just how I'm wired, and I don't think that's inherently a negative thing. It's what makes it so that I keep moving forward, keep creating and exploring new ideas and trying things and just seeing what happens. And I love that, and I'm actually really proud of that. On a base level, I think it's healthy, but it's when it gets out of balance is when it's not healthy anymore. You might have noticed there is this whole self-care movement that we see and as a direct counter to the hustle culture that's happening right now. And I'm sure it's like a bazillion-dollar industry or something like that because humans know that they need to slow down. And people want to sell us stuff to give us that illusion. Use this product and you'll feel better. Reward yourself and take a spa day. Be like this influencer that sits in her yoga pants and drinks her matcha on her balcony. And while this isn't a bad thing that there's a counterculture that's emerging to combat the hustle culture, I just want to make sure that we don't miss what is really important and what the real goal is for ourselves, and that is balance. I get caught up in the pressures of society and in my own goals and in my own expectations that I put on myself. And I forget to prioritize the balance, the rest, the restoration, the silence and the stillness. I forget to prioritize creating for the sake of it, not because somebody's paying me to do it, not because somebody needs me to solve a problem creatively, but just for the sake of creating. I forget and I let stimulation outweigh everything else, and I let doing outweigh being. And at that point, I'm just surviving. I am not thriving. I call it being in survival mode. And at a point, at some phases in our lives, this is very real and very hard to avoid. Last year was one of those years for me. It was a very hard year for me and my family. We were selling our house and renovating a new one at the same time. Both situations did not go as expected, and we ended up in a very difficult situation financially and in our day-to-day lives. So every day from May through November consisted of either last minute having to get ready for a showing of the old house where we were still living and working. All 120 of the showings that we had during that time period, each of which involved cleaning the 4,200 square foot house to perfection, making sure the greenhouse looked perfect inside and out, and there were no sticks or leaves on a property in the frickin' woods. Oh, and then there's the chicken coop, making sure that that wasn't gross, which is really hard to do. And so as every day that I would try to sit down and work to make money that I so badly needed, I would get interrupted by either a last minute showing or some crisis happening at the renovation, or someone that needed me to make a decision and spend money I didn't have or fix a problem, while also being a mother and a partner and a friend and all that goes with that. I was in survival mode. I didn't take care of myself in the ways that I know that I needed with food and nature and exercise. And I didn't paint as much as I wanted to because I might have to stop and clean it up in the middle of painting. I wasn't feeling like I had the creative energy to paint anyway, but I need to paint. It grounds me. But like I said, I do have trouble prioritizing it when those survival mode times are upon me. And this was a very long extended one of those times. So when we finally got into the new house, this was like earlier this year in March or so, it was ready enough for us to live in, and it wasn't completely done. And we finally sold the old one. I decided that I needed to try to start to make up for what I had just been through and how I had treated my body and my brain and my soul and everything else. But how do we do this? You know, you're wondering, because starting is often the hardest part. When we get into a pattern, it gets much harder to break it. Our brains are just wired that way. Whatever pathway in your brain is getting the most use and the most exercise is the one that becomes the strongest. So rewiring that and changing patterns it's really hard at first. But what I have found from all of my research and practice is that we start with 5 minutes. 5 minutes is something that everyone has. It's not a big commitment, and it doesn't feel like it's not doable or it's going to interrupt the already busy day that we have. It's just 5 minutes, and we all have 5 minutes. So what do you do in those 5 minutes, you're wondering? Well, there's a lot of things that we can do. I mean, we can do breathing and yoga and meditating and drawing and playing guitar. There's so many things, and we'll talk about more in future episodes. But since today is a wild episode, I want to talk about nature. So what I did when we got to the new house is, first, I stopped doing anything that I didn't absolutely have to do. Walls not painted? It's okay. Trim not done? It's okay. Boxes not unpacked, nothing on the walls. There's a garage full of stuff I have to go through and get rid of. It's really okay. And then I started by letting myself have 5 minutes of quiet in nature on my land. I go outside, I took my shoes off and stood in the grass, and I let the sun absorb into my skin. I let that grounding energy of the earth absorb through my feet, and I paid attention to that, like tried to be very aware of the energy coming from the earth into my feet. And it's a real thing. It's called grounding if you have not heard of it. Many of you probably have, but it really does help. And I would let the warmth of the sun make me feel calm. I left my phone inside, and I would just listen to the birds and the bugs and any ambient noise. I would watch the clouds go by above me and the trees just sway in the wind. And eventually I started to walk around and explore. 5 minutes became 10 minutes without me even realizing it. Sometimes 10 minutes became 20 minutes because our bodies want this. Our bodies want that calm, the peace, that restoration. We want to connect with nature. But the reason that we start with 5 minutes is because those pathways that are wired the way that they currently are will fight you if you try to do any more at first. It will say, I can't take a break. I don't have time. But it's really hard to argue with 5 minutes, right? So slowly, minute by minute, you start to get back to or move towards balance. When your nervous system begins to feel the result of the break you're giving it, it craves more until you get to a place where the pendulum isn't so far to one side. And as I walked around, it reminded me of all the ways that nature teaches us balance. Flowers don't bloom all year long. Trees drop their leaves and they rest in the winter. Rain starts and then it stops, and animals hibernate, and some of them pace themselves and conserve energy like turtles. Ecosystems, they self-regulate. When one species overgrows, nature brings it back to balance through predators or weather or scarcity. So if your body feels tense and your brain feels foggy and you're restless, but you have no real energy and you feel stuck creatively in a rut, take inventory of where is your ecosystem out of balance. Where do you have too much of this and not enough of that? What have you been doing too much of and not enough of? And I encourage you to take that 5 minutes in nature. If you live in a city and you can't put your feet in the grass or listen to the birds, I still want you to try to take that 5 minutes. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in a meadow or a forest or near the ocean. Put on headphones and nature sounds and visualize yourself there. Wherever feels the most connected to you, because some people are ocean people, some people are mountain people, some people dream about the rainforest. So whatever, it could be someplace that you feel connected to the most. It could be, maybe where you went to the lake as a child, or someplace you just always have dreamed of going, and just visualize yourself there. Anytime that you're feeling too wired, too drained, too out of balance, try to take those 5 minutes, and maybe it becomes 10 minutes, and maybe it becomes more, because it's the repetition that's what helps us get back into balance in a more lasting way. That's how we start to actually rewire those neural pathways, and then it becomes much easier to maintain it. And just remember, much like so many things in nature, you cannot thrive when you're out of balance. Thriving isn't a luxury. As much as we have been taught that just suffer through. We all deserve to thrive and not simply survive. And if you do try this, please let me know. Come message me on Instagram at Meghan Eileen and tell me if this helps you. I would really like to hear from you. And I am so grateful that you're here and that you spent this time with me. And I hope that it empowers you to start taking those small steps towards balance. Thank you for being here with me, and I will talk to you again soon, my friend. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. If you're curious, you can find my paintings and all my creative tools on my website at meghaneileen.com. If you feel like you could use some one-on-one creative consulting or coaching to reach your goals, you can book a time with me. I would love to talk to you. You can also join us in my masterclass, where I teach you how to create magical rentable spaces on your own property. Visit styleforprofit.com or just come connect with me on Instagram at Meghan Eileen. If today's episode sparked something, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might appreciate it. Until next time, be fearless, wild, and creative.